Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another video. And in today's video I'm going to be saying my 10 fights, UFC fights that need to happen in 2024. Obviously yesterday I did my 10 boxing fights that need to happen in 2024. If you've not already watched that and you're interested in that, go and watch that. Obviously now we're talking UFC, and you know, this is my last video before 2024. So before we get into it, I wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who has watched any of my videos or helped me along any bit more this year. This year in general has been a really good year for me, and for this channel, and for just myself growing as a person in the space. I suppose it's been very good. I mean, my interviewing started this year, starting at small hall shows, and that's really been built up, and now I can say that I represent other channels and do stuff with them and can go to big events. And you know, next year hopefully that's going to progress even more to be able to go to more even bigger events, but whilst also still supporting the smaller hall shows and the fighters who I've made friends with now. And you know, it's really nice to see, and I really appreciate that. And also with this channel as well, even with just the videos like my predictions and my weekly fighting roundups, which started off as sport this week. I mean, I've changed some of my content a bit, now fully fighting related, and I appreciate the support that I've had on that. Now I've got multiple videos with over 1,000 views, one with over 2,000, which, you know, like I say, I really appreciate, and not far off 400 subscribers now. Gained more subscribers than I ever have any other year. I've been doing YouTube for quite a while now. Obviously my content's changed a lot since then, but you know, this year it's been a very good year, and on to next year being another very good year, and you know, progressing into even bigger things. And you never know what the future holds, I suppose, and that's what this year has most definitely taught me with everything that's happened. And so, you know, like I say, I appreciate it. And so yeah, now I've done all that. Like the video if you're doing, like this, subscribe if you're new, and we'll get straight into it with my number one pick. So Jones versus Miocic is my number one pick. Obviously this fight was arranged to happen, and Jones has gotten a bad injury. He's going to be out for a little while, and I mean, he's already been out for a little while, and I still believe this fight is going to happen at some point. It's the fight which I think is necessary for the heavyweight division. Obviously Miocic, he's getting on a bit now, but on paper he's one of, if not the best heavyweight in the UFC ever, and Jones, he's wanting to cement himself as the best light heavyweight, the GOAT of the UFC, and I feel like this fight is a necessary fight for him. Obviously Miocic hasn't fought for a while, he's getting on a bit, he's definitely not in his prime anymore, but I still think Jon Jones needs to go out there and just really put on a show and showcase what he's got to the fans, I suppose, and you know, really cement that legacy for him. And I don't know if he's even going to go and defend that belt again, if he's going to retire after a fight like that. With especially this injury, this might make him think, oh, maybe it's only really worth having one more fight left. But you know, this fight is most definitely a fight which, in my opinion, heavyweight division needs to be made. Last year I said it was Jones versus Ngannou. Obviously that would still be a huge fight which I'd love, but I just don't see it as realistic at the moment. And yeah, I just don't think that that's going to happen next year, in my opinion. So I've gone with Jones versus Miocic, which is still a huge fight. Moving on to my second pick, I've gone with Makhachev versus Edwards. Edwards, obviously he's coming off a dominating performance against Covington, completely shut down anything he ever came with, and you know, was it, like I say, a very dominated performance. And Makhachev, he's on a destructive run at the moment and coming off absolutely destroying Volkanovski, really. And obviously there's a weight class between. I'm not a massive fan of fighters just going on and saying, oh, they win the belt and then they just want to go for champ status straight away. Obviously I'd like them to defend it, and like them to defend it a couple times. And I mean, Makhachev, if he goes on to defend it against Oliveira, then possibly once more, then maybe at the end of next year, if Edwards is also defend his belt a couple more times and still been as clinical as he has been, then I would love a matchup between them two guys, and I think it would make for a great fight. And I think it would be a very tough fight for Edwards. Obviously Makhachev being pound for pound one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter in the UFC, and so you know, it'd be a very big fight, and hopefully would come to England for that, and would sell a pay-per-view for that. But yeah, moving on to my third fight, O'Malley versus Dvalishvili. Apologies if my pronunciation is terrible. I would like that fight. I think it's a fight which has been built up quite nicely already. I think O'Malley, with most of the bantamweight division, makes for a great fight. And obviously he's beat Sterling now. He's going to fight Vera again. If he wins that fight, then I think Cejudo versus Dvalishvili is setting up for that of the next fight for O'Malley or Vera, whoever wins. But I would probably say that O'Malley is going to win on paper. Obviously, I haven't done my prediction for that yet, but I would like to hope that he does. And then I would like to hope that Dvalishvili wins as well. People are complaining about his style maybe being a bit more boring or just smothering, I suppose. But, he didn't let you work. He's really, really dominating, Dvalishvili, and he's entertaining as well when he's on the mic and when he's just going about the ring in his own business. And, I think it would make for a great fight. I think it'd be a tough fight for O'Malley because obviously he likes to have that bit more space and to work and to counter you coming in. But I suppose Dvalishvili is going to come in. But when he does get hold of you, like I say, he's not really going to let go. And so, it'll be difficult for O'Malley if he misses and if he gets his timing wrong with the striking to really have any other options. So I think that would make a great fight. Moving on to my fourth position. Obviously, this fight could not be the case with, I'm going to just say McGregor versus Chandler is who I've gone with. McGregor, he's saying he's going to announce his opponent tomorrow. And so, depending on when you see this, he might have already announced who he's going to fight next. But I think McGregor versus Chandler is a necessary fight. Will it happen? I'm not sure. McGregor, he's at his own point in his career where he's literally just doing whatever he wants. And whatever, seemingly, I suppose, has the most money. I don't know if the UFC is going to be offering him the most money. Obviously, he will a lot. But there might be some Saudi money that might be better. But on paper, it's a very good fight. Two fighters in the later parts of their careers, but still would make a very entertaining build-up, and I'm sure would make it a very entertaining fight. And, if not, then I don't know where Chandler really goes from there. And McGregor, I suppose we'll have to wait and see who he says as an option, but I would just love him to fight in the UFC again. Obviously, I don't think he's ever going to go back to a title level in the UFC, but I would love to see him fight again still. Moving on to my fifth fight, Holloway versus Gaethje. I think that's a great fight for the BMF title. I think it would be for Holloway. He's still proven that he's still a very good fighter, even though he's not that old, but he's been around in the UFC for a long time now. He's shown that he's the top contender in the featherweight division and has pretty much beaten up everybody else bar Tapera, who's now fighting Volkanovski anyway, but he just can't win the belt anymore. And I think if he is to move up, obviously he used to be a lightweight, and so I think he could move up. And Gaethje, he's coming off a good victory, and he's had not bad year himself, and for the BMF title, that's probably the best fight to make. And it's a very entertaining fight of two strikers, and I'm sure there'll be a knockout from either way from that fight. Moving on now to my sixth position, I've gone with Adesanya versus Du Plessis. Obviously, Du Plessis is fighting Strickland. If he wins or loses, I still think he should fight Adesanya. I think that matchup probably makes more sense for Adesanya. I think that's a better matchup for him stylistic-wise. And I'd just like to see Adesanya, as such a dominant champion as he has been, to go back and to get back to the big time and to get back to the big fights and to get a big fight like this and to shut down possibly a big contender if he does win, or to get another title shot if he beats Strickland, to get another title shot, and if he doesn't win or if it's a close fight between him and Strickland, to then just have a big fight either way. But yeah, it's probably, in my opinion, the most entertaining fight in the middleweight division, bar of course the one that's happening in Strickland and Du Plessis. Moving on to my seventh fight, Pereira versus Hill. Pereira is now the light heavyweight champion. He's had an interesting year. Obviously, he got stopped badly versus Adesanya, but went on to then move up in the weight category and then dominate in his fight against Prochazka. But Hill was the champion. He only gave it and vacated it because of his injury, which I very much respect him doing. But that fight now makes sense to happen. Hill, top contender now, and Pereira, the champion. That's the fight which, in my opinion, has to happen. I don't really see any other really, really big fights in the light heavyweight division. And Pereira, if he's going to win that fight, then he's pretty much beating all the best guys in the light heavyweight division. And then what's less to do? He possibly could end up moving up to heavyweight by the end of next year. We never really know. Moving on to my eighth fight, I've got Fiorot versus Grasso, my first women's fight on this. Fiorot versus Blanchfield is a great fight, and I'm very much excited for that. I feel like that should be for a belt. I kind of not annoyed, but just like questioning why that's not for a belt. I know it's, they could only really give it for an interim belt because but Grayso's an active champion, I suppose, and so they shouldn't really give the interim belt. But it's a great fight, like I say, and it deserves that of a title, and I think it is going to live up to the bill. And I think Fiorot might just edge it. I mean, I'm not giving away too much of my prediction yet, but I think Fiorot might just edge it. And then if she does, then the Grayso fight would be a big fight, and a deserving fight in the run that she's been on. Fiorot, Grayso, after having a very good year herself, could have a big fight there. And like I say, that probably is the biggest fight in the division. Whoever wins that, Blanchfield versus Fiorot, Grayso has to fight that one. Moving on to my 9th position, got Weili versus Suarez. Weili is, becoming a very dominant champion. She had a very good victory versus Lemos earlier on in the year. She's only fought once this year, but she's kind of, I suppose, waiting for other top contenders to come up. Suarez, in my opinion, is that person, that fighter. She is building herself up nicely. She's just got a good victory over Andrade, and I think she is the fighter to now fight Weili. She's ranked very nicely. I feel like with the UFC, this top 10 fight thing is just me going off rankings and picking fights that I like to see, because it's a lot easier to do this than it was the boxing one, because obviously there's so many different fighters from so many different places, and so this, in my opinion, is a lot easier. But Weili versus Suarez, I think, makes for a good fight. Obviously Weili, she has fought a lot of the top fighters in that division, so she needs some new fighters, and Suarez is that. Moving on to my 10th position, my final fight, I've got Aspinall versus Gane. Maybe I'm just being biased. Well, it is all my opinion at the end of these fights, but obviously I want all the British guys to be fighting the best fighters, and Aspinall has had a great year himself. Well, bar coming off the injury, he's had a great year, and now he's the interim champion, and I think that Gane fight is the best fight to make. Almeida is another option, but he's fighting, I believe, soon anyway. I think he's fighting Curtis Blades. But I think that Gane fight should be a fight to be made. Gane, obviously, he's not had the best of years with the Jones loss, but then won convincingly versus Spivak, and so I think that fight is the fight to make. It's obviously me going off divisions again, but I think with Jones fighting Miocic and then maybe not even defending, then that fight is probably for the belt at some point in the heavyweight division come next year. But like I say, the winner of Almeida versus Blades. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.